Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
The Dallas Cowboys' patience could cost them, literally. The 49ers extend RB1. And when will professional athletes stop making the same stupid, bad decision?
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
After Justin Jefferson signed the largest non-quarterback contract in the NFL, it would be easy to picture CeeDee Lamb calling Jerry Jones and going full Jerry Maguire. And Micah Parsons, same deal. Dak Prescott, same deal. All of these guys wondering when they are going to have the money. Show me the money. Landon McCool from Locked On Cowboys. Always money. Him and Marcus Mosher over on Locked On Cowboys. This is all fine, right? No problem?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's pretty much business as usual. I mean, frankly, like, this is the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, I was concerned that you were just going to lead me into this little segment playing an organ grinder like circus music. Because, I mean, honestly, like, this isn't too different from what we're used to. It's just taking a different shape. You know, I think the CD situation to me is, I think the Justin Jefferson news you brought up is very poignant, because clearly there has been some sort of, and I'm not going to call it collusion, but there's some sort of coordinated effort by the three first round wide receivers to kind of wait as long as we can wait. And now that we've seen Jefferson's deal go, I think that the conversation becomes, you know, is that the starting of the negotiation, or is that kind of where it's going to be the ceiling? So hopefully they can get through that part quickly. You know, the Micah Parsons situation, I think, is a whole other ball of yarn. I think really that's a situation that he created in a lot of ways, right? Like, he goes onto a podcast, and I love his stuff. Like, when he does the podcast, he's hilarious, he's insightful, he gives you a lot of information. It's great. But I think he's also going to find that he's going to create these situations for himself where, obviously, he had CeeDee Lamb on. He talked about wanting to be a leader. He talked about wanting to, you know, show other guys how it's done. And I think for the media, and especially for the local media, that, you know, often translates to OTA attendance. But this is also a thing that he has been, like, he didn't change his offseason routine. Like, this is, he normally skips that week of OTAs, or at least some form of that he's done the last 2 years. I think the difference here is that, you know, he's put a kind of a target on himself by saying these things on his own podcast. So I think that's a young player who's learning what, you know, kind of being transitioning from being the young, affable young player to the media target is like. And now he's kind of getting a taste of what it's like to have a podcast and kind of put your foot in your mouth, which I know very much a lot about.
I was say, being a podcaster harder than some people realize, I guess.
Yes,
the moral of that story. And looming over all of this is Dak Prescott, who cannot be tagged at the end of this season if he wants to hit the free agent market. If the Cowboys do not show him the money, he will find a team on the free agent market that will, and he will reset the quarterback market when and if he does that. Las Vegas is ready. Miami is ready. Like, there's a team, maybe LA is ready. And so how does the Dak Prescott of it all affect the way that you go into just a team building philosophy with CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons, understanding that if you reset the receiver market, the pass rush market, and the quarterback market, like, you and I might have to suit up for the Cowboys at some point.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, you know, I think it kind of, in a lot of ways, answers a lot of the questions as to, you know, why haven't the Cowboys been doing a lot of stuff in free agency, is because they're still waiting to make their big three moves that they might be making. I honestly think the Micah Parsons situation it's going to wait another year. Like, that's just, they've got a lot more options with him and more leverage. You know, they still have his fifth year. They still have, you know, several different free tags if they want to use that. I think with CD, they know they want to get this deal done. The more they wait, I mean, with all these guys, the more they wait, the more money they're going to make. Micah said it today that's the new strategy is why would I sign a deal early? I want to wait to get the most money. And frankly, I think that's what's been throwing the Joneses for the biggest loop, is that even though they've made mistakes here in the past, so Jalen Smith, Elliott, of signing guys maybe a little bit too early, I think that is actually their preferred method here, but they've been burned a lot. And a lot of these players like Dak in the previous contract have turned around and said that they don't want to sign this deal early. They know that they can get the most leverage by waiting. They know that they're going to get paid top of the market for their position, no matter what happens. So if you wait an extra year, it's the difference between making $30 million a year if you're CeeDee Lamb, or $35 million, $36 million if you wait an extra year. So I think that's, the shifting sands has definitely got the Joneses in a tailspin. There definitely is some incompetence happening here with them, because they could have gotten some of this done earlier. But I also think there are extenuating circumstances, especially with the CD deal, that are kind of making this a little bit more difficult to corral.
Okay, 2025 opening day. Of those three players, how many are on the roster?
Well, I feel confident that two of them are definitely on the roster. You're gonna have to pay me extra money to find out which two. Listen, I don't know what's going on with the Dak situation. I think we've all talked about it to death, and I think we all have our thoughts and feelings. My gut feeling is that the Cowboys have kind of a handshake deal with Dak, that they're going to wait a little bit to sign that deal, and there's some sort of agreement happening, because none of it seems to add up too well. So either the Cowboys are going to get this deal done before training camp or during training camp, and we were all just kind of, they were just waiting till absolute, deadlines make deals sort of situation, or they are truly giving Dak, hey, we're going to give you one more opportunity to kind of take us a step beyond where you've been able to take us so far. And if that's not the case, maybe it's time that the Cowboys are looking to kind of look at the next thing, whether that's prudent or not.
Stay up to date on the Dallas Cowboys all year by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Cowboys on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Coming up, the San Francisco 49ers extended Christian McCaffrey, but not Brandon Ayuk. Before we get to that, have the Lakers found their next head coach? It's winner take all time in the NBA and the NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. The NBA Finals all set with the Mavericks and Celtics facing off this week. Right now, the Celtics, heavy favorites, minus 225 to win the whole thing. The underdog Mavs, plus 188. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. The Los Angeles Lakers appear to have narrowed down their head coaching search. Reports out Monday afternoon, JJ Redick has emerged as the front runner to be the next Lakers head coach. An announcement isn't expected until after Redick finished covering the NBA Finals, which, it should be noted, the Lakers are not anywhere near. The Miami Dolphins are in the midst of locking down their long-term future after extending Jalen Waddle last week. Both Tua Tagovailoa and Tyreek Hill are looking for new contracts that could help reset the market at each position. And it was Tua who came in looking svelte, down some weight, and feeling like he's in, yes, I'm going to say it, say the thing, the best shape of his life. The Oklahoma Sooners softball team is climbing the rankings for best dynasty ever. The Sooners advanced to their 5th straight Women's College World Series on Monday afternoon with an extra inning walk-off home run. If the Sooners win, it will complete a 4-peat. The Sooners will take on the Longhorns in what will be both teams' last event in the Big 12. And the reigning World Series champion Texas Rangers are hoping to get back a crucial part of their roster soon, as Max Scherzer is gearing up to return. The three-time Cy Young winner hasn't pitched yet this season after undergoing surgery to repair a herniated disc in December. The San Francisco 49ers are finally paying their star playmaker who's been waiting to get it's Christian McCaffrey, not Brandon Ayuk, is the one getting the extension. He resets the running back market. And let's be honest, he's the best running back in the league. He deserves to be the guy. And frankly, if you listen to our pal Brian Peacock over at Locked On 49ers, who joins me now, he has been telling us since Christian McCaffrey got there, he is the engine of this 49ers offense. But Brian, there are some other players in the Bay Area who would like to get paid. What do you make of this happening now?
Well, first of all, I would like to recognize that I wasn't the biggest fan of the Christian McCaffrey trade right away as the West Coast chairman of the Running Backs Don't Matter chapter. So, but he's a different cat. I think John Lynch put it best today when he spoke about the professionalism, the way he plays the game. Every inch matters, every cut. Christian McCaffrey puts every effort into everything he does on the field, and it's really been phenomenal to watch, week in and week out, to watch him play. And he truly is a lot more than just a running back, which is why he's so valuable to the 49ers. And he's such a perfect fit for Kyle Shanahan's offense and the positionless brand of football that Kyle Shanahan likes to use and operate in and put defenses in stress. But to be honest with you, this is one of the most win-win contracts I've seen in a while, because Christian McCaffrey does deserve a bump. He deserves a little bit more guaranteed money, which he had none of left on the last 2 years of his contract. And really the $24 million he had left on the last couple of years, that just has turned into guaranteed money now. And they added 2 new years, which become team option years for the 49ers, essentially. So the 49ers don't really have to stick their neck out here and go really big money and go 4 years down the line to a 31-year-old running back, which is insane to do this era in the NFL. And while the agent puts the numbers out there, 2 years, $19 million per extension, that's not really the reality of what this deal is. Essentially, the last 2 years of his old deal became guaranteed now. And a 4-year average of about $15.5 million is what we're talking about with this new contract for Christian McCaffrey that goes through 2027, very likely to get through 2025 and 2026. We'll see if he actually sees that 2027 money. Phenomenal player, deserves the parade, deserves all the accolades, deserves that signing bonus he's going to get because he's got a marriage coming up and a wedding that's probably going to be pretty expensive with his wife, Olivia Culpo. So that's maybe another reason why he wanted to get a little bit more scratch immediately versus waiting down the road to see if he was going to get another contract eventually with the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, Christian McCaffrey turns 28 on Friday. Could have used this money before the Super Bowl when apparently the families of Olivia Culpo, they couldn't afford to get a box for the Super Bowl. It was too expensive. Maybe now if they go again next year, they can afford it over in New Orleans.
Oh man, I wish I'd have known. I had 2 boxes. I would have let them use one of them. Those are cheap, man.
You dropped the ball, Brian. You dropped the ball. Speaking of dropping the ball, Brandon Ayuk does not drop the ball very often, and he would like a new contract. He is now the second receiver in just a few seasons to agitate for a new deal in San Francisco, and for the 49ers to play a little bit of hardball here. Where do we stand with Brandon Ayuk?
I don't know what the numbers that are being exchanged are, but apparently they are still exchanging numbers. This hasn't gone radio silent with negotiations or anything like that. Everything we've seen this offseason has only helped whatever numbers Brandon Ayuk and his agent had slid across the table to John Lynch and the San Francisco 49ers. They're definitely not needing to come down after seeing Justin Jefferson get $35 million a year. Right. And the 49ers, and look, this isn't like a hindsight thing. We've been talking about it on Locked On 49ers. Probably want to get in front of this wave of new contracts for wide receivers. The 49ers, though, are playing hardball. And look, Brandon Ayuk's under contract, 5th-year option this year. They've got a franchise tag if they want to go that route. So there is leverage for the team here, but we just don't see teams flex that leverage anymore. And so we'll see if the 49ers become one of those few teams. And they do have some serious salary cap implications and some considerations to make with so many stars. And then a quarterback, Brock Purdy, presumably up next offseason for what's going to be a $50 million per year contract.
I wanted to ask you about that quickly before we finish, Brian. They cannot negotiate a new deal for Brock Purdy yet. If they could, what do you think that contract would look like?
I think it would be probably high 40s, something like that. I think for the 49ers, it would be so much money anyway. I think they would prefer waiting a year just to make sure. Just one more run. Let's get another look at him. Do it again. I fully expect him to do it again. I think it's going to be a phenomenal offense. I think they're going to have Brandon Ayuk and they're going to have Debo. They're not trading those guys. They're going to be developing their first rounder to step into probably Debo's role next year, unless this thing really goes south with Brandon Ayuk. But they're in that Super Bowl window right now. And if they win it, and Brock Purdy plays like he did last year when he was an MVP candidate, he's going to get a whole lot of money. And even if it's a little more than he would have already gotten, I think it's worth it to wait and see that happen. And a lot of guys deserving of a lot of cash in San Francisco. They're going to have to start figuring some things out with who they're not going to pay at some point, because they've still paid everybody.
Stay up to date on the San Francisco 49ers all year by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On 49ers on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, the MLB came down hard on 5 players for gambling. Major League Baseball announced Monday that 4 players were given year-long suspensions for gambling on baseball, while Padres infielder Takupita Marcano was given a lifetime ban.
When it comes to Marcano, just a really, I genuinely like a really unfortunate situation, and they cracked down hard, and they kind of had to, right? Like, you have to, and I think that's what we're going to keep seeing. And I don't think this is going to be the last situation either. I just don't. I don't think anyone else does either, but I just find that when you're placing all these different bets, when we have all these different issues arising, I mentioned the other ones from before, from football to basketball, it's just going to keep happening. And I'm just wondering at this point, when do we get to the moment when, you know, let's say Padres and Phillies in the playoffs, and then we discover a player on one of those teams had a bet, whether it was against themselves or it was for themselves, whatever it is, and then we find out like 2 months later. Like, that's the nightmare scenario. So part of me would think that these leagues are smart enough to figure out, like, we need to nail this down. Like, we need to be careful. But part of me is like, well, this is how people act, and we've already had some heinous examples of gambling in the past that have tarnished entire World Series in the case of the Black Sox scandal, right? So this is a lot.
The part that makes this one so gobsmacking to me, truly beggars belief, is that according to documentation and reporting, Marcano, who bet on games that he didn't play in, but his team played in, won just 4% of his bets. The first person, maybe in recorded history, to insider trade and lose money. And this is not a unique phenomenon. We just saw Jonte Porter get the ban in the NBA. And now we have reporting that he was encouraged by his debtors to throw games. This is the fundamental fairness of the game at stake. That's why you're seeing guys gambling and getting lifetime bans, while you see players committing heinous, physical, violent acts. And welcome back to the league. This is the sanctity of the game. The very game is at stake. But this is a stupid criminals moment. You have the best information possible. No one has better information than the players in the clubhouse, and you can't even make money off that. You don't deserve to be in the league if that's the level we're talking about here. And finally, Pittsburgh Pirates reliever Aroldis Chapman threw a mini fit on the mound on Monday night when Dodgers outfielder Teoscar Hernandez made hard contact with a pitch. Chapman immediately turned around and threw his glove down to the ground while letting out a yell, only for the ball to be a routine fly ball to center field. I guess he probably just heard a lot of the fans in the stadium yell out. And let's be honest, fans in the stadium are terrible judges of fly balls. Every ball in the air, you get the, and it is often just a routine fly ball to center field. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up on the next Locked On Sports Today, the NBA Finals are finally here. So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on Sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.